Take me to church, shout. Get the sign of your life.
Hello guys, welcome to another breakdown. In this one we're going to look at a mysterious little cave that I made recently. We'll touch up on how I got started, the camera positions, movements, setting up the basic scene, and then going on to lighting, rendering, and just changing up, tweaking settings, iterating, reiterating on things that we think that might make it look better. So let's start off with the camera. This is the camera I have. It's just going to be facing the direction where my scene is going to be, and it's just animated with keyframes, nothing too hectic. Next thing we add is the ground. Now the ground plane is our basis. This is where we know this is where all the action is going to be happening. I did use the sculpt mode just to sculpt some ridges and like give it a bit of height just to make it interesting. This view over here is the camera view, as you can see. So this is what we'll be looking at, and as compared to a flat plane with like something that's a bit more interesting, gives a bit more shadows, curvatures and stuff. Now we can use Quixel Megascans to import some assets. Now this has just been filled up. Basically, if you go to Quixel Megascans and just import anything that you like and basically rotate them, scale them, position them according to what you think your scene wants to look like. Now these are quite big, and if I just add a armature to show you how big they are. So this is a human scale, and you kind of can imagine how big this is. If I put this back here, you can see that this is really huge. You can't see it in here unless I turn this on. So you see our little guy here. So you can see it's a huge cave. So just scale it, rotate it, and this is not something that you're just gonna sort of know and you're just gonna place and that's it. I had to change these a lot, add different ones, maybe move them later on according to the lighting, the positioning, the shadows, anything that you might want to accentuate, anything that you want to hide. For example, this one is just a random one floating in the air, but it's actually blocking light, so that we get like a dark spot, which you'll see later. So now we have our sort of like bounds of the room. So now we can start filling in details according to what we think would be happening here. So I used a reference image. So this was the reference image I used for this scene. This was generated by AI. I could have generated more, but to be honest, I just love this one so much. I just had one image. It's a cave with some light at the top. It's dark at the bottom, has a few rocks here and there, has a bit of vegetation, and just random things placed here and there. The main thing that interests us in this picture is the lighting, I'd say, because it's nice and warm down here and dark, but it's quite bright and blue and cold up here. So if we can get that nice contrast, it will look good. So that's what I was trying to recreate. So now we need to add details, which would be some smaller rocks. As you can see here, I added these rocks. These are again just Quixel Megascan assets, and placed them according to what I see in the camera. Like you can see, the camera is moving forward, so I want to be able to see something in the foreground in the start, and then obviously by the time we reach the end. The camera does have a subtle rotation to it, if you can see here. So it has a 98 and then rotating just to about 5 degrees, just so it makes it look like it's looking upwards a bit. Although by the end I could have made it look a bit more upwards, but that's obviously something that you can always tweak. The camera is something you should tweak, be the first thing that you set up, because according to the camera you'll be placing all these objects, because it makes no sense to place something here and waste resources and time for something you're not going to see. But obviously if you make a difference, you kind of tweak the camera later on and you find out that this camera angle looks better, then you can move stuff off, and it's just easier to tweak. But other than that, you should have a basic frame that you want to fill. Alright, so we have our props and stuff here. These are our rocks, just set up randomly, and now we're going to add some more props. Now these props are what really make the story, as you can see. So in these props we have these lanterns and stuff. These are kit bash props that I just placed. A lamp here, there's a tent. This is just a sketchfab, sort of a 3D scan that I just duplicated here as well. So it's basically showing us that maybe someone's camping here, set up in this little cave. Maybe they're mining, maybe they're doing something. They have these boxes and crates, they have lamps and lanterns and stuff. So the story is starting to develop. Now, to actually show what's happening, we need characters which really show us what's happening. So if we add our characters, this is just generic Mixamo characters with a simple walk animation. So we have one down here, we have one guy over here, which is basically the same one, just to add depth and also show scale to the fact that someone so close to this cliff or rocky area is so small, and so we can get a good sense of scale. Same with this guy who's up here, who's just climbing this rock, and then we have one over here who's also climbing a rope. And these are all Mixamo animations, and since we're so far away from them, it doesn't really matter what character you use or like how good it looks, because you're not really going to be able to see them. Obviously he's not just climbing in thin air, he does need ropes, so we added ropes, as you can see, with a subtle animation, just trying to crudely get it to work, because then again you're not going to be able to see it from so far away. This thing is just a headlight, so it's just a cube with a volume shader on it with a touch of emission, just to make sure that it looks like he has like a headlamp or something on. And then these ropes also add to the story, that maybe someone's climbing out, someone climbed in, maybe it's just for fun, some climbing going on basically, maybe entertainment. Right, so now as you can see on this side, we have some sort of animation going on and looking into what's actually happening. So if we move on to lighting now, so I'm just going to turn on rendered mode on this side. So it's black right now, which means we have no lighting. There is 0 strength for our HDRI, which means we have absolutely no lighting. We could turn this up to 1, which would light the whole thing up, but that's just going to light everything up, and we either have to block it all out because this is a dark scene, because it's a cave, or we can just turn this to 0 and add our own lights, which I did. So first of all, we add the main light, which is our sun. So since we want to get that impression that there is a light coming from up here that is sort of shining in, and then there's a dark area here. So this is our main light. It's facing away from us so that we can have some nice shadows on this cliff, and also a little bit blown out here, which is an artistic choice, just to make sure that the viewer thinks that it's quite bright outside. That's why it's not underexposed inside. Anyway, that's all for camera settings that you can work with. This is the main light, so now we need to add accessory lights, which would be stuff like lamps, torches, stuff like that. So if we add a gobo, which is essentially just a plane with some faces cut out, just to block this light off. As you can see over here, if we remove our gobo, it's just bright and everything, the light's just shining on the whole thing. But with using a gobo, we kind of break it down into little things, which you'll see a lot better once we turn the volume on. And so we got the headlight, which is just the light for his head, as you can see here. And then there's this light occlusion box. So this box was made just to occlude, like I said before, just to occlude or like isolate this area in case even if we do turn this HDRI to 1, it's not coming, the light won't be coming from here, it'll only be coming from here. Like, let me show you this a bit better. So this is the box, so it's isolated from all the sides and just has the top that allows light in. This is where our light's coming from, and light's not going in from anywhere else, which does make a difference. As you can see, if we just remove this completely, then there's light coming in from everywhere. This does make it a little bit better. This is in the case that you want to actually have some sort of HDRI, which in this case I do not. The next thing is just torches. So we've got these torches, so this is lit up as well. This separate collection I made for night. So if I turn this on, this is all the small lights that we need for a night render, which you can see this is dull with just one light. So let me break this down for you. First of all, you might notice these guys. If we go inside this tent, we have two characters sort of just talking or having some fun, which also are Mixamo characters, animated, got the animations from Mixamo as well, and then edited the animations just a bit. So there's a point light right here which shines on these guys and then creates this shadow. So if I take this light out, you can't see those guys, so it's just an effect, as if they have like a lamp or something inside, and you can sort of make out. If you want to make it blurrier, maybe you can always change the size. So if I put this to 1, you won't be able to see anything, and if I put it to 0, it'll be very crisp, as you can see. So we don't want it to be too crisp, so we can experiment with this. So this looks nice, like just seeing, almost making it out. If you want it to be even less, just to see that maybe some shadows are moving. I'm not sure what I stuck with, I think it was that at the end, but whatever it was, so you can see that there is something going on inside. That's just another extra element of sort of character and story, I'd say. And then we have our lamp up here, this one. This is also just a quick asset with a light here. Our candle has a light here, which we can see here, and then back here we have just another one of those lights, just to make sure that everything is lit up a bit, just give it a bit more. And then we have this light here, and let me just show you this. So this is like a fake fire, it's just a plane for a fire with an alpha map on. So I just duplicated it and rotated it, so from afar it looks like fire, so you can't really tell that it's a plane, and it's not animated. Oh, actually it might be animated. No, it's not animated, so it doesn't really matter because we're going to be seeing it from all the way up here. So now you see how the lights kind of make a difference, and if we just try to use one light, it's not really going to look as good, even if we use a HDRI or something. So the night lights, even if you're doing a daytime scene, these small highlighting prop lights really make a big difference to set the scene and kind of create a mood. Especially you see with this light down here, the light is at quite a low angle, and so it's creating these beautiful little shadows, give really a sense of depth and realism even. So the main thing that we're missing now is the volume. So I'm just going to add the volume. As you can see, for the volume I actually have 2 volumes. So let me just enable both of them so you see both the volumes. So this is the second one and this is the first one. The first one is basically, let me just turn off the second one. The first one is basically a different density, at a higher density, just to make sure that we see these rays. And like I mentioned before, if we take out this gobo, it's just flat, sort of. But if we introduce the gobo, we get these little streaks, just volumetric lights. So this is the volume setup. So it's a camera path plugged into the value with a multiply node and into the density of a volume scatter. You can change the anisotropy if you want. What it does is, let me show you. It's a very interesting feature to play with. So if we have this at 0, all the light is going to be evenly distributed in the whole cube. But if we turn this to 1, then the density will be sort of concentrated around the light sources. So if we bring this up, you can see that this part starts to go in, like it starts to get darker because the volume isn't affecting it as much. So when we go to 1, we just lose the volume completely. But as long as we're not at 1, we're just like at 0.9 or 0.8, you can see that the volume is just concentrated in this area, which makes it highlight a bit more and makes it like bloom a bit. So that's a really nice effect. But obviously if it's just going to stay up here, you won't see the light streaks. So if I turn it down a bit, then you start to see these light streaks come up. And then obviously at 0 it's just everywhere. You can change the color of it as well if you want a certain type of mood, but obviously make sure that it's what you want, because it's not going to be realistic. So you can see the second volume is also the same thing, but it's around the whole scene. So I don't even need it up here, I could just move it down here and scale it down, but it's basically the same thing, but I have the flexibility to change its density in case I want it to look more foggy. So yeah, so now we have our volume as well, so our scene is looking good. The only one thing that is missing is some vegetation. I have the botanic add-on, for which is just a few ivy leaves and little ferns and stuff that's just hanging around, just to make it look a bit nicer and green. We could add moss, maybe like a moss on the back. There could maybe even be a waterfall back here if you wanted to kind of increase the depth of it. Maybe have a little pond or lake, like a little water body here, and then have this be a waterfall. I mean, it's really up to you how you want to tweak it, and that's what happens. So if I wanted to spend more time on this, I would try adding a waterfall, water bodies, the moss, maybe a different character, maybe changing the characters around, because we really need to tweak our work at the end. Because I found that once you make the basic sort of scene, it never looks as good until you tweak it. And if you don't tweak it, it'll be sort of mediocre, but the more you tweak it, the better results that you get. So anyway, that's our scene. We have everything showing. You can always tweak things around. I did have to rotate these a bit to make it look a bit better. Once we add the lighting, you can kind of see things that light's shining on and the shadows that are created, and according to that you might want to change stuff up. So yeah, that's your basic scene. If you want your renders to look a bit better, especially the ones with volume in, you're gonna have to increase your light paths, your volume bounces, which are set at 0 right now, but if I move this to 2, then it's gonna bounce in the volume a bit more. And yeah, with the volume you usually need more samples as well. Persistent data for animations, of course, it does use a bit more memory, and if you're crashing, then turn this off, otherwise this is great time saver. AGX view transform for realistic colors, and motion blur for realism, of course. That's about it for render settings, and then you render it out and you're all done. So that's our scene. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this one. Feel free to ask any more questions or request any more breakdowns for any of my other animations. And thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.